Gentlemen, you may salute. On your guards. You may begin. Now notice that the rapier is a long, thrusting sword. It is still edged, but it is maximized for the thrust. As such, the fight tends to be more linear, which is why the gentlemen can move their way down the tables for your benefit. It also can be very, very quick. Since a thrust moves between 2 points, it can be quite swift. You'll notice the occasional cut, but compared to what you saw with the sword and buckler, the fight is much more linear. There's far fewer cuts, and they're often much smaller.
Yes.
The other thing to note about the dagger is that basically the dagger comes in to take the place of the buckler. It isn't so much an attacking weapon as it is a parrying weapon for catching, trapping, and manipulating the opponent's sword. The sword is the principal defensive and offensive arm in this period.
Yes.
The other thing that's interesting about rapier fencing is this is the first time really in the history of European swordsmanship that we see a sword dedicated just for dueling. So a split between swords for war and swords for personal affairs. This will continue right until the end of the era of the sword, but its birth is here with the rapier. Now, you'll notice that John dropped his dagger. Fortunately, just like every Renaissance gentleman carries a dagger, he also carries a cloak. And I'm sure people are familiar with the term cloak and dagger, but indeed, these are the gentleman's two sidearms. And so any good duelist of the period would be well versed in using the cloak as a secondary arm. So the gentlemen are going to show you just a few passes with the rapier and the dagger versus the rapier and the cloak. And the idea is that the cloak can be used to entangle and foul the opponent's weapon. It can also be used to conceal the swordsman's own sword.
Yes.
The trick, of course, with anything long like the cloak is not to let it conceal your own vision of the process, and instead, the opponent's.